Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Chantel, and today I am going to be doing the continuation of my experiment in doing bi-weekly wrap-ups as opposed to like a once monthly wrap-up. So I wasn't entirely sure if I was going to have very much to talk about in this bi-weekly wrap-up. That was sort of part of my concern to going from the monthly wrap-up to the bi-weekly wrap-up is that I wasn't sure if my reading pace would be such that I would have a lot to talk about every 2 weeks. But I did end up finishing a couple of books. I've purchased a few books. I've got a few books sort of waiting in the wings, and I also have some viewing to talk about. I do want to I do want to maybe talk a little bit about what I'm watching, both in terms of television and movies, if and when that happens. Especially if things that I'm watching are like adaptations of books. I think that's relevant content. So, but yeah, so it turns out I do actually have things to talk about this after this sort of 2-week period. So I'm going to start with the books I've finished, because I have finished a couple. I read, what happened was that I recently went on just a little weekend jaunt to Kansas City, and I didn't feel like bringing any of the physical books that I was currently reading because they were both quite large, heavy. Didn't really feel like packing them in just like an overnight bag with me, so I just downloaded a silly little Regency romance to my Kindle from the library and did that when I was on my little trip. And so that was a book called Ne'er Duke Well. As I said, it's a fluffy Regency romance by Alexandra Vasti, I believe is her name. And I actually saw this, I saw the second book in this series, which I believe is called Earl Crush, on Hannah's channel, I think. Fresh Parchment is her channel name, I think, is where I saw this. She read the second book in the series, Earl Crush, and she really liked it. And this is exactly the kind of romance, when I read a romance, that I want to be reading. It's very fluffy. It's a historical romance, so it's not contemporary. I'm not really into the contemporary thing. I think part of it for me with contemporary romances is that most contemporary romances come down to just, if you would just talk to each other like adults, you would be fine. There's often not really much sort of outside conflict or potential conflict. It's usually just miscommunication trope, in my experience of contemporary romance. I don't know. I'm asexual. I don't really care. I just read what I like. What I like is usually more in the historical vein. So this is a Regency romance. So right, so I believe, again, Hannah, I believe, had read the second book in this series. It's called the Belvoir's Library series. And I, being the weird completionist that I am, I'm like, well, I want to read the first one first and see how that goes before I jump into the second one. My library does have both, so it's fine. The thing with romance series, as opposed to like sci-fi and fantasy series, is that they're usually not heavily serialized, right? They're usually much more standalone. They just happen to be set sort of in the same world, and feature some of the same characters, right? So this particular romance series features, I assume, because it's called the Belvoir's Library series, I assume it's going to feature all characters that are associated in some way with this fictional circulating library called Belvoir's. So yeah, that's what this is. The premise of this is pretty silly, but it works for me, again, I think largely because it's historical. It's fine, doesn't matter. But basically, the main male character is a duke, he's recently inherited his dukedom from his grandfather. He never expected to inherit. He's actually American. He was born and raised in New Orleans. He's like the younger son of a younger son, so never expected to inherit. Circumstances conspired, and he is now a duke, and he's moved to England to, become the duke and take over the dukedom. He also has discovered that he has 2 half-siblings that are much younger than him, who are orphaned. Their mother died, and he wants to become their legal guardian. And he's petitioning the court to become their legal guardian so that he can raise them. And he's afraid that he's not going to get it because he's got kind of a reputation of being a little bit, reckless, being a little bit of a scandal magnet, whatever. And so he applies to his sort of political acquaintance, this other duke who has a sister named Selena Ravenscroft, who is our main female character. And she's like, well, maybe if you got married to the right lady, the court will look more favorably on your guardianship petition. And despite the fact that I'm heavily attracted to you, I don't think I'm the right lady. I need to set you up with somebody else. So, and then of course, shenanigans ensue. And it's a rather silly premise, but for me, it works. Selena's big secret, of course, is that she is in fact the proprietress of the Belvoir's circulating library, which of course is very scandalous for the sister of a duke to be involved in business. And also, this library has a catalog within it called the Venus Catalog, which is available only to women subscribers, and it includes a number of very salacious texts, translations of erotic Greek poetry, memoirs of courtesans, and like basically sex ed manuals for women. So it's potentially very scandalous. It's a big secret, and she's trying to hide it. And so, of course, all these different shenanigans ensue, and then you get your happily ever after, because this is a rom-com, right? This is a romance novel. Romance novels always end with a happily ever after, or at least a happily for now. And so, yes, it was enjoyable. It was exactly what I wanted for my little jaunt to Kansas City, because I just needed something light and fluffy that I could read in the evening at the hotel when I was tired and wanted to kind of turn my brain off. So it was exactly what I wanted, the literary equivalent of cotton candy. So that was that. Then when I got home, I was like, okay, I need to hunker down. As soon as I finished that, I was like, okay, I want to hunker down. I'm past like 2/3 of the way through Anna Karenina. So I was like, I'm going to finish Anna Karenina. I wanted to finish Anna Karenina before the end of the month. I decided. So I did. There's actually like a full week left in the month, and I finished it last night. So yeah, I've now officially read Anna Karenina. Yay, I'm so excited. I enjoyed this a lot. It was good. I really liked the Levin plotline, character arc, whatever, a lot more than I actually liked like the Vronsky Anna Karenina thing. I liked the Levin stuff a lot more. It's pretty obvious that Tolstoy was working through some stuff with Levin, which is, I think, a big part of why I found it so interesting. Though I do think the Anna Vronsky thing does connect probably a lot more than maybe it seems at first in terms of the thematic, philosophical, and religious concerns that Tolstoy clearly has. But yeah, I thought that the Levin thing was very compelling. I thought that his inner journey and his inner growth was very interesting to me, even though I absolutely don't agree with it at all. Like, I don't agree with any of the conclusions that he comes to at the end of the book. Absolutely do not agree. But it's fascinating to read and to get into his head and to read his understanding of the world, the way that he sees the world. And it's clear to me that Tolstoy is like actively rejecting a very particular strain of philosophy in the materialists, right? And he's sort of actively sort of pushing against that idea, which, sure, I don't know much about materialists. I'm not a big philosophy person, so I couldn't tell you if what he's arguing against is actually what materialists think. I don't know. I don't have that knowledge personally. Again, I don't agree with the worldview that Levin expresses by the end of this book, which is one in which basically morality itself is not rational, is sort of his idea, and so therefore, like, you must have some kind of faith, some kind of like religious faith in order to be a good person, because goodness, morality, feeling for your fellow man is not necessarily like logical or rational, which I completely disagree with. I would not consider myself an atheist, but I am pretty agnostic, and I think that, like, we have probably proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that being good and kind and compassionate to each other and doing things for the good of the community is in fact a logical and rational way to be. I think that that's sort of been proven almost scientifically. Like, there's studies, qualitative and quantitative studies, that show that, like, the adage of the rising tide lifts all boats kind of thing is true. Like, if you help other people, you're also helping yourself, right? So I don't agree with that at all. But I do think it's really interesting the way that he comes to these conclusions, and it's really emotional. Like, the emotional grip that it gets on you does really kind of sweep you along. But anyway, I really did like Anna Karenina. I thought it was good. I don't know that I have a whole lot else to say about it. I just finished it last night, so I'm still kind of ruminating on it. I do think this is one of those books that it probably bears out more on rereads. So it might be a book that I have to come back to at some point. And I certainly will want to read some things about it and about Tolstoy as well to get a better grasp on the context and what's going on here. But yeah, I did really like it. I really liked the stuff when he was at his brother's deathbed was really good. Again, like, this is all Levin stuff. All the Levin stuff just really got me. I think Levin is a really fascinating character. From every angle, really. Like, the way that he reacts to his brother's dying versus the way that his wife reacts to his brother's dying. I actually have this part marked, right? Levin thought of the text not because he considered himself wise and prudent. He did not so consider himself. But he could not help knowing that he had more intellect than his wife and Agafea Mikhailovna, and he could not help knowing that when he thought of death, he thought with all the force of his intellect. He knew, too, that the brains of many great men, whose thoughts he had read, had brooded over death, and yet knew not 100th part of what his wife and Agafea Mikhailovna knew about it. Different as those two women were, Agafea Mikhailovna and Katya, as his brother Nikolay had called her, and as Levin particularly liked to call her now, they were quite alike in this. Both knew, without a shade of doubt, what sort of thing life was, and what was death. And though neither of them could have answered, and would even not have understood the questions that presented themselves to Levin, both had no doubt of the significance of this event, and were precisely alike in their way of looking at it, which they shared with millions of people. The proof that they knew for a certainty the nature of death lay in the fact that they knew without a second of hesitation how to deal with the dying, and were not frightened of them. Levin and other men like him, though they could have said a great deal about death, obviously did not know this, since they were afraid of death, and were absolutely at a loss what to do when people were dying. If Levin had been alone now with his brother Nikolay, he would have looked at him with terror, and with still greater terror waited, and would not have known what else to do. I don't know, that really stuck with me. I think this is definitely like the start of his sort of almost conversion experience. I think this probably, sort of leads kind of logically to the idea that, like, again, it's more about faith than it is about logic or rationality, the understanding of death, the non-fear of death comes from, you know, the belief in an afterlife sort of thing. But I think it's a really interesting thought experiment. You know, that he's so, you know, considers himself so afraid of death, and yet his wife and the housekeeper are both very sort of straightforward about it in the way that they treat it. Anyway, I thought that was really cool. It's a good book. It's a good book. I thought it was worth my time. I'm glad I read it. Yeah, so that's Anna Karenina. So yeah, that's what I finished this month. So I think I finished 3 books this month now, because I did Light of the Jedi, and I read that romance novel, Ne'er-Do-Well, and then I finally finished Anna Karenina. So that's cool. I did buy some stuff. As I said, I went to Kansas City for a little trip, and of course, I'm traveling. I have to go to some place that's selling books somewhere, somehow, and buy books, because that's what I do. We found a great used bookstore in Kansas City called Prospero's. It's really fun, really cute, very old building, very neat. Really loved it. And I did find a couple of books there. So I found this copy of Romola by George Eliot. As you may know, I read Middlemarch last year. It was my first George Eliot, and I really liked it, so I picked this up. This is a Modern Library Classics edition, which I really like these, honestly. I have a Modern Library Classics edition of Dracula that I've had forever that I really, really like too. So yeah, I picked this up. And then I found this Library of America collection of Edith Wharton novels. So this is really nice. This has 4 novels in it. This has The House of Mirth, The Reef, The Custom of the Country, and The Age of Innocence. This is a really quite a good, it's quite in good shape, Library of America. These are also pretty nice books to have. They're nice cloth-bound hardcovers. You can take the jacket off and see how nice these are. And they've got ribbon bookmarks and everything. I got both of these books for like $25 at Prospero's used bookstore in Kansas City. So yeah, that was good. I did also I finally got this copy of the Star Wars High Republic character encyclopedia that I ordered from like Abe Books. It's like a used bookseller, online used bookseller. And so this is really nice. It's a really good character encyclopedia. Got lots of art, lots of stats and blurbs about all the characters in the High Republic books. So this is really good. Really nice addition to my High Republic collection. And then when I got back from my trip this week, I saw from Book Chat with Pat and a couple of other people that there's going to be a sort of discussion group called Summer of Steinbeck going on that are planning to do like over the summer. And I thought that would be a fun thing to join in on. Because I was already planning to read some Steinbeck this year. I actually put East of Eden on my sort of classics TBR for the year. And they're going to planning on reading that in July. And in June, they're planning to read The Grapes of Wrath. So I thought, sure, why not? I'll join in on that. So I'll probably do that. And so just today, in fact, I went, trawling through my local used bookstores. Because that's where I like to buy my classics, usually, is from my local used bookstores when possible. So I did at Blue Stem Books in Lincoln, Nebraska. I did find, in fact, both The Grapes of Wrath and East of Eden at Blue Stem Books in Lincoln. So, yeah, so I have these now, so I'm prepared for the Summer of Steinbeck. So that's exciting. Yeah, I'm looking forward to these. This East of Eden edition is really nice. This is the Steinbeck Centennial edition. yeah, and it's like, it's basically a Penguin Classic, like, special edition. Because, yeah, it's got good art, nice artwork. It's got the French flaps. It's got the beveled edges. So, yeah, not bad. And then this one is, yeah, a Penguin 20th Century Classics edition. So these are both Penguins. But yeah, so good finds. Got them for like $15. And then I also was at my other used bookstore, also looking for Steinbeck. They didn't have any Steinbeck at the other used bookstore, which is a novel idea, but I did find this copy of Dragonfall by L.R. Lamb, which it's been on my radar, and I want to give it a shot, and it was less than $10, and it was just sitting there on the shelf, and I was like, sure, I'll grab that. So I did. Yeah. So that's the books that I bought the past couple weeks. I actually bought quite a few, more than usual. But that's fine. I don't mind. It's okay. They're all secondhand purchases, so that doesn't bother me that much. I don't, sort of the ethical implications of purchasing secondhand books don't bother me that much. So if I buy several of them, it's not a big deal as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, that's what I've been buying. So I'll probably be starting The Grapes of Wrath pretty soon. There's a week left in the month of May, but once June gets started, I'll probably start this pretty quickly. It's, it's long-ish. This edition is almost is a little over 600 pages long. Though honestly, the font is relatively large in this, so I don't think this will be that. I don't think this should take super long for me to read, honestly, but yeah, I'll probably start this pretty soon. Also probably coming up, I'm still reading The Eagle and the Heart, which is the book about Richard II and Henry IV, is historical nonfiction for Historathon. I'm working my way through that, so that is still ongoing. I'm enjoying it a lot. I'm really liking the way that Castor talks about Richard's understanding of himself and his place in the world, and how that became such a problem so quickly. The idea that, like, he was very concerned with being able to exercise his authority as the king, but he also had no idea about, like, how to actually exercise that authority. He just wanted the authority for the sake of having it, because he thought he was entitled to it, right? Because he was born, he's the king, right? He was born for this. Everybody, he's God's anointed, so of course he, should have this authority and should be able to do basically whatever he wants, right? And nobody should argue with him, because he is the king. He's God's anointed. So that is, it feels relevant, I think. Strangely enough, it feels relevant today. But yeah, so it's the political situation and things that are going on in that sort of narrative of, like, the 1380s in England is very interesting to me, and I'm enjoying it a lot. But I'll probably soon be picking up, I've got a number of things. Mirrored Heavens by Rebecca Roanhorse. I really got to get that done. It's the third and final book in a trilogy. I really should. It's sitting on my shelf. I really got to pick it up and get it going. Guards. Ditto. Sunbringer by Hannah Kaner. The next one, the sequel to Godkiller, that's also sitting on my shelf. I really should get to that. So yeah, there's a lot of books that I'm going to be picking up probably pretty soon, and we'll see how we go. I have been a little bit slow with my reading lately because there's been a lot of television to watch. There's been so much TV to watch. Between The Last of Us, which I'm now behind on by like 2 episodes, but I will catch up with that soon. Andor, the Star Wars show, which is now unfortunately over. I was very sad when it ended, but it was so good. So good. That Andor is one of those shows, even if you're not a Star Wars person, even if you know very little about Star Wars, you should watch Andor, because Andor is just so good as a like political thriller, spy thriller kind of show, that like you don't need to really, I mean, it really stands on its own, and it's so good. Everyone should watch it. Like I cannot emphasize enough how much everyone really should just watch Andor. Like just go watch Andor. It's so good. But yeah, that's unfortunately over now. But Doctor Who is still going. I'm really enjoying this season of Doctor Who. Actually, it's been really fun. And now we've got Murderbot, which is also, I haven't watched the 3rd episode yet, but I watched the first 2 episodes last weekend, and it's great so far. I'm really enjoying Murderbot. It's of course an adaptation of the Murderbot Diaries by Martha Wells. It's on Apple TV Plus. Alexander Skarsgård is Murderbot, and I think so far it's quite good. I'm enjoying it a lot. It's nice that the episodes, I like that they stuck with the sort of 30-minute comedy format, because I like that they're short, they don't overstay their welcome, much like the books themselves. They tend to be pretty short, they don't overstay their welcome. We're just going at a clip, and it's very fun and quippy, and it's enjoyable, thoroughly enjoyable. So yeah, there's that. Gosh, what else? I'm probably gonna start watching The Pit soon. I know it's a hospital show. Everybody's raving about it. I was a big ER girly back in the day when I was a kid, watched ER a lot. So I really like that kind of show when it's good. So might start that. I've also started watching Watson, which is on CBS, and it's yet another sort of Sherlock Holmes pastiche, remix, whatever. I'm such a Holmes girly. Like, I read, I have the original, obviously the Conan Doyle stories. I've read most of them. I don't know that I've read all of them, but I've read most of them. I have a bunch of pastiches that I really like, the Laurie R. King ones that are about Mary Russell and Sherlock Holmes. I like those a lot. I've read a lot of other Holmes pastiches over the years. I've watched pretty much every adaptation in Holmes pastiche that's been released in the past like 50 or 60 years. Like, obviously, like, Basil Rathbone is iconic as Holmes. But I've watched almost all of the modern ones too. I think, to me, Watson feels like, let's do House, but a little nicer, because House was, I obsessively watched House when it was coming out, and I really liked it at the time. But I will say that, like, it is dated in that it was very much at the forefront of the genius asshole thing in television, where it's like, yeah, he's a genius and he's also a huge asshole. And I think it does kind of do a disservice to the Sherlock Holmes thing, because I don't think Sherlock Holmes is actually that much of an asshole. Not as much of an asshole as a lot of adaptations like to portray him. That's a little beside the point. I feel like Watson is trying to be a House thing, but nicer. Because it is the same basic kind of premise, except that it's Watson, obviously. Watson is the one who's trying to diagnose these people who have these illnesses that he can't figure out, right? He's the medical detective now. Watson is. This is sort of after the death of Sherlock Holmes at Reichenbach Falls, right? We'll see where we go with it. I've only watched like maybe 3 episodes of it, so I'm not super far into it. But it seems, it's kind of a patient of the week type episode where they have a different case every week. But of course, there's also these sort of ongoing plot lines with you know, Moriarty and things like that are happening in the background and developing over time. So we'll see where it goes. I'm not sure yet how much I actually like it or how invested I am in it, but it's been something to watch. So yeah, I'm watching a lot of television. So that's what I'm doing lately. I'm gonna be seeing the new Mission Impossible movie tomorrow. I'm going to that tomorrow. So I'll probably report back on that at some point. But yeah, so that's what I got for this bi-weekly wrap up of mine. Finished a couple things, bought several things, generally having a good time, watching a lot of television, good television. Again, if you haven't watched Andor, please watch Andor. My God, watch Andor. And also check out Murderbot if you have access to Apple TV Plus, because I think that's turning out to be pretty good so far as well. So yeah, what have you been reading and or watching the past couple of weeks? Anything good? Any of the things that I've talked about are things that you like? Let me know in the comments. Like, subscribe, you know the drill, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.